Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and this year in 2026, it is not a question of if you're going to utilize and leverage AI, not only in your business, but also in your personal life. And that's why I'm so excited, because we have got an incredible guest to kickstart this year and so many amazing conversations about AI and all the considerations there. And this guy is going to help you unearth where and why and how you can leverage AI both personally and professionally. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Luka Anic. Luka is a Croatian-American co-founder of Fox Spindle, where AI transformation comes with equal parts strategy, storytelling, and mischief management. He maps out what AI can do for a business. He helps humans wield it with confidence and ensures the only sparks flying are the productive kind. And trust me, you are not only going to love all the knowledge that Luka is sharing with us today, but when you go check out his business, this is somebody who has put so many resources into the world to help all of us in what's going to be a very exciting year of AI. So I'm excited to learn from him. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Luka Anic. All right, Luka, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Heck yes, I'm so excited. There's so many things that I could have teased at the top of today's episode. You have the best named blog in the world, the What the Fox blog. But Luka, I'm going to start with you before we get into strictly the business stuff. Who's Luka? How did you start doing all this cool stuff? Take us beyond the bio.
Yeah, well, thank you for introducing me. I got into AI by accident. I was looking for a new job, and a former company that I worked for brought me on to help them implement AI internally. So we set up an AI Center of Excellence. It was an interesting time because AI was growing. No one really knew how to do it, what to do with it. And we spent a year doing everything from researching the tools out there, figuring out the use cases, what to use it for, and specifically what not to use it for, and I lucked into discovering a passion for it. And that led into me from wanting to never own my own business to suddenly, wait a second, I can do this. I should do this for myself. And that's how Fox Spindle was born. Fox Spindle is my small boutique consulting firm that I co-owned with my best friend Jenny. And here we are. And that's how we found this podcast. Actually, we found you through ChatGPT. So congrats on having a good AI SEO setup.
Heck yeah, I love that. Ooh, thanks for the real-time insight. Super appreciative of that. And Luka, when I look at all the things that you're doing, it's actually, I'm just going to steal from your website for a second because I love the headline right on it. It says, you can watch change happen or you can lead it. And I feel like there's two parts to the conversation. One, first and foremost, you are an entrepreneur who is leading that type of change here in 2026. But additionally, let's talk about the people that you serve, which is such a wide audience, both individuals and business owners, because Luka, here we are, 2026, a fresh year. I don't think we can ignore AI anymore. What's your perception on where we are in this landscape of mass adoption? Because it's easy for me to live in a bubble and think everybody's talking about AI, but outside of it, I'm so curious where you think we are in terms of it reshaping and helping our lives, especially our businesses too.
Yeah, so everyone is talking about AI, so it feels like it's prevalent everywhere. It's all over the news, it's all over your, feed on social media. But I've discovered the truth is not enough people are using it, or those that are using it, that are inflating the number of users out there, are using it to summarize emails. I think generative AI, specifically generative AI, is the one that we're talking about, like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and the like. It has not permeated our new ways of living and new ways of working. And I think that's why this is such an exciting time to be having this conversation. My goal in my career is to help folks realize that AI allows you to be someone you have never been before or even knew that you wanted to be. It can unlock skills that you don't have, and in a way don't even need to build anymore. You've mentioned our website. I've built so much of that website with the help of AI. I don't know how to code. I'm not an engineer, yet here I am building all sorts of really cool things on it. So I encourage anyone who is fearful of AI, to actually give it a shot. And if you don't want to do it alone, there's plenty of resources, Fox and Spindle being, of course, one of them, to learn how to do it safely and effectively, and above all, ethically. I think AI has such tremendous ability to help, but again, anything that can be so helpful can also be harmful. So, not to misquote Uncle Ben, but with great power does come great responsibility.
Yeah, Luke, I feel like you already introduced us to why part of the mainstream narrative struggles to talk about AI and the two sides of it, because as you said, there's a question of if we're going to need to develop these types of skills. Like, you and I don't come from a programming background, but all of a sudden we can program, and we didn't have to develop those skills. And I think about it, my niece and nephew, they're 8-year-old twins. And so every time I talk to them, I'm just like, what are you guys doing in school? Because I'm so curious if they're ever going to write essays the way that we had to. And that brings up the very important point of, it's not about the essays, it's about the writing. It's about the thought process. It's about the organizing. And so, Luca, here we are in a world where you and I can do so much more. We can achieve so much more. But where do skill sets and skill development factor into that? Because it is part of the ongoing debate.
It's a very important question. And for example, my son is 5, so I spend a lot of time thinking about how am I going to introduce AI to him in the not too far future. Because AI allows us to do things that we don't have the skill for, I think it's going to create a divide between people who are, I hate to use the word self-starters, but AI is going to help those that want to learn, the ones that use AI in a way that expands their abilities and their understanding at the same time. It's one thing to learn how to code with AI and then leave it to do its own thing. It's another to understand what is happening as the AI is coding for you. Now, it doesn't have to be coding. It can be anything like that, but there will be a divide between people who are expanding their learning capabilities and those who end up on the lazy side that simply let AI do things for them. You mentioned essay writing. That's a perfect example. Essays in schools are going to be different because AI, at this point, it's almost undetectable if you use it correctly. And there will be folks who don't learn how to write efficiently, but there will be those that then exceed their own abilities. AI is essentially accessible to everyone. There's free tools everywhere. As long as you don't have, governmental restrictions that prevent you from accessing AI, it's not expensive to use, but you need to want to learn it yourself. And I hope that as education evolves, that they teach people how to want to learn and not just essentially cheat their way through, because it can be cheating.
Yeah, I really like the way you articulate that, because, and obviously you're in good company here on the show, that entrepreneurs, they are the self-starters. And so I'm sure a lot of listeners hearing this will say, Luca, I want to be one of those proactive ones. I want to be one of those learners. I want to be pushing the envelope here. And something that I really appreciate about your company, Fox and Spindle, is the fact that you address both professional usage of AI and personal usage of AI. Luca, I would argue that most entrepreneurs, they want to be using it in both of those lanes. And I would imagine that using it personally reshapes the way that you view the usage and potential use cases professionally, and vice versa. Talk to us about that two-pronged approach, because I think it's so brilliant the way you've structured that inside your business.
Well, first of all, thank you. I would say it's not a two-pronged approach. I think it's part of the same thing. If you're new to AI, please don't start using it at work right away. Have fun with it first. Figure out where in your personal life you can benefit from it, whether it be travel planning, whether it be coming up with recipes. The easiest way to learn anything, not just AI, the history, math, is to have fun, to discover what you like about it. The same thing applies to AI. So if you're new to it, open up ChatGPT, open up a free account, and ask it, hey, ChatGPT, what can you do for me? Hey, ChatGPT, I like sci-fi, horror, and romance. Which books fall into those categories? Discover new things. Hey, teach me about 17th century Mongolia. Just discover something. And then as you get used to AI, as you start understanding how it works, then implementing it at work, whether it be through your regular job or by opening up a company, it will become part of your daily life, simply because you will, through play, understand its benefits. So I get lucky because in my entrepreneurial life, I use AI for everything and I have fun along the way. But I didn't start that way. The very first time I used AI, I think I asked it to tell me a story about Nicole Kidman directing a Buffy movie or something like that, something silly.
I love that. And especially because, I mean, you talk about play, but also, Luca, what I found in my own experiences, and I hear so much of it in your journey as well, is just natural curiosity. And I see this with my niece, that there are so many things that she's just curious about, with chess, for example. I've gotten her into chess a little bit, and she's just like, why do I move my pawn out in the first move? Why do I want to control the center of the board? And she can have these conversations with AI, but obviously you've brought up so many important considerations, and you have a child, and obviously I'm an uncle, which is the easiest and best job in the world. But through that lens, we can talk about it in terms of youth, but there's also adult considerations. You talked about ethical usage of AI. You talk about responsible usage of AI. Your website talks about being ready to actually use AI. What do those considerations look like? Because I feel like this is the intentional layer that we all need to incorporate here in 2026.
Yeah. So I look at it from two different ways. One is simply the ethical part of using AI. AI is biased. It's biased because it was built by humans and it was built on human knowledge, and humans and human history are inherently biased. So let's say if you are using AI to review resumes, can you do it? Sure, it works very well from a technological perspective, but should you use AI to review resumes? I hate the idea, because AI will prefer white male looking resumes. If you have a female sounding name, if you have something that sounds non-white, you will be biased against when AI is using it. Not because AI itself wants to be biased. AI doesn't really think. All it does is it looks for patterns and the educational background that it's been given. And because human history has a history of incredible bias, that's simply what's going to happen. That brings me to the other side of AI. AI is unlike other technologies that we're used to using. You know, when you use any kind of technology, when you open up a Word document and you start typing on your keyboard, you know exactly what's going to happen. When you use PowerPoint or Excel and let's say in Excel, you add 3 plus 3, you know it's going to be 6. There is no other option. Excel is very predictable. Generative AI is the exact opposite of that. And unless people understand how it works, they won't know when to trust it and when not to trust it. And that's a big reason why we started Fox and Spindle, other than, we wanted to be entrepreneurs and let's have a company. It's because we saw the need to educate people on how this new technology works and how to harness its lack of predictability. Generative AI is fantastic when there is no correct answer. That's why it's so good at recommending books, why it's so good at writing stories. For example, my son is in a Chinese immersion program where he learns Mandarin, but I don't speak Mandarin. So I can ask my son and say, hey, what story do you want to hear today? And he'll say something like, oh, I want Tomato from Cars and Milo and Chip from this Minecraft video thing that he watches. And I can tell ChatGPT, hey, tell me a story about these random characters meeting together. Oh, and by the way, tell it in Mandarin. And it can do that. And it does it in a heartbeat. And it's incredible. It's amazing. But if you ask AI how many R's are there in strawberry, or to write you a 50-word poem, anything numerical, anything that has a correct answer, it's probably going to fail. Even though it sounds like this incredible technology, it has very simple weaknesses, but people don't know that. So they just trust it implicitly without understanding what they're looking at.
Yeah, and Luca, that's why I really appreciate how much of your business focuses on education of AI. I feel like that's such a gap in the marketplace right now. Everybody's launching AI startups, they're building tools, they're building SaaS companies, iPhone apps, all these cool things. But the education piece, you talked about people don't realize what it it can't do just yet, or what it's not very good at yet. I'll use my dad as an example, whether he likes it or not. Luca, my dad has a tendency of, now that he's gotten into AI, he'll ask ChatGPT for everything. Even on a free account, he'll ask, hey, what are the cheapest flights to go from here to here on this specific day? And he thinks the answer is correct. And then I say, please ask it, what is your cutoff date of knowledge? And did you search the internet to get this? And no, of course it didn't. But for someone who doesn't know that, Luca, my real question to you is, in the moment when we're using these things, there's no flag that indicates, hey, I made this answer up. How are end users supposed to know the limitations of what it is that they're using?
By either educating themselves by taking classes and learning from people who understand it, or just using it enough and asking enough questions to start realizing when AI is hallucinating. And by the way, that's the formal term. When it's giving you incorrect answers, it's called a hallucination. That's ironically, when an AI hallucinates, it's actually giving you a statistically accurate answer that is factually incorrect. And there is no way of knowing that an AI is hallucinating other than to know the actual fact. And that's why, as much as I love AI and I use it daily, multiple times a day, I never use it for something that is deterministic, that has a correct answer. So I use it to write better. I use it to create images. I use it to code, but I never use it to make decisions. And now in 2026, AI is not good enough to be a decision-making tool. It should be your assistant. It should be your brainstorming partner, but it should never, even for simple things, it should never be a decision maker, because you can't trust it. Now, I don't want to scare people and say, oh, it's going to be wrong most of the time. It's actually going to be very, very correct most of the time. But Brian, as you mentioned, there is no flag other than your own knowledge to say, whoops, that was incorrect.
Yeah, it's such an interesting world that we live in, because it is so brilliant in so many ways. And we see all those benchmarking tests of AI smashing humanity. But you use that classic example of how many R's are there in the word strawberry. And it's like, how can something so smart understand these things? But I love that deterministic angle that you put on it, that caveat, that disclaimer. I think it's so important for all of us to remember that in our daily usage, whether personal or professional. And Luca, it makes me beg the question that I'm sure a lot of listeners are constantly wondering is, in a world where everything is changing every single week, it's very safe to say that these days, and there's so many different types of tools, not even just large language models. At this point, we're starting to see kind of the rivalries develop, Team ChatGPT, Team Gemini, Team Claude, all of those. But there's also so many, there you go. There's also so many refined and specified niche down tools. How do you stay on top of all of that stuff? Because it's something that can unlock new powers for us, but also there are considerations, and it's so hard in the ever-moving landscape.
Yeah, so I will say don't try to stay on top of it, because you will fail. It's happened more than once that one of these AI companies made an announcement and a change to their system literally while I was holding a webinar and teaching people how to use it. So don't worry if you can't stay on top of everything. But if you're looking for a single source, my favorite is it's a newsletter from the Neuron Daily. Those guys do a wonderful job of summarizing literally the daily news that happened in the AI world. They generally catch everything, and like everyone, I have probably 50 different newsletters that I signed up for, and I never even opened the emails. The Neuron, by the way, I'm not getting paid by them. I'm just happen to be a big fan. For those who want to learn more on the basics of AI and just know what to watch out for, Ethan Malik, he's a professor at Wharton. His LinkedIn page is a wonderful resource, as well as his book, Co-Intelligence. Here I am just advertising other people. I should be advertising myself. People, go to foxspindle.com to learn. But joking aside, those are free resources, and they're really good. If you only have time for one, the Neuron is your place to go.
Luca, I was totally setting you up there, man. I do want you to talk to us about Fox and Spindle. That's the beauty of having founders here on the show, because I think that the way that you structure, the way you serve, and the way you educate people as well, it's so brilliant. You have so many different solutions there. You called out your webinars, and I do want you to talk to us more about that, because I admire content creators in the AI world where your content is out of date literally the next week. So Luca, talk to us about those types of resources that you've rolled out at Fox and Spindle, and important importantly, address that fact about how things are constantly changing and what that means for you as a creator in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it very fun for us. And that's why we set up a weekly webinar series that's open to everyone. It's free. And we cover topics ranging from, here's AI 101. We don't expect you to know anything. And let's talk about what does AI look like today. So if you go to foxandspindle.com/ How the Fox, you will see all of our different webinars that we offer. We will cover topics like how do you use AI to role play? And I don't mean Dungeons and Dragons, although you certainly can use it for that. I mean, how do you set up a persona that can be your devil's advocate, that can be your assistant, that can be your teacher? We dive into those. We do vibe coding webinars. So if you're interested in exploring the world of coding as a non-engineer, we add those as well. And all of these webinars are free. Also, because this is an entrepreneurial conversation, we realized how lucky we have been that AI exists now and today. My partner Jenny and I, when we built this company, we used AI in ways that was invaluable. And I'm talking figuring out how to start a business from a legal governmental perspective, how to set up marketing, how to do cold emails. This time last year, I thought cold emails were you email someone and then that's it. Apparently, there's a whole lot work that you have to do on the back end to protect your domain, to make sure that you don't end up in spam or worse, internet jail. And I don't even know how people did this before AI. I mean, how did you start your own business? I mean, it must have been expensive and difficult as heck, because for us, we just go to AI and say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I woke up a couple of weeks ago in a panic because I realized our website didn't have a cookie banner. And I'm like, oh God, I'm from Croatia. People are reading this in Europe. Is GDPR going to get me? And run to AI and say, I need a cookie banner. Tell me how to do this. So long story short, we learned so much that we set up an entrepreneurial webinar series. This is a paid product, but it's an 8-week live series for budding entrepreneurs. We were lucky. We had AI to figure this out, and we realized, you know what? We want to share this knowledge with others. So if you are interested in joining us on the journey, we set up a 8 webinar series for you called Start Smarter with AI, where the goal is let's get you from idea to an actually established company in a span of 2 months. So if that's something you're interested in, it's on foxandspindle.com. We'd love to have you there.
Yes, and listeners, you already know, a little bit of a spoiler alert. We're obviously dropping all these links down below in the show notes. We're going to prime Luca at the end again to drop all those links on you. But Luca, hearing behind the scenes of what it is that you guys offer and how you offer it, I think there's so many lessons to be learned in the way that you think about it, the way that you structure it. And to answer your question, starting my first business in 2008, I am so glad there are people like you who are accelerating people's journeys and figuring it out, because in 2008, actually, Luca, I had to go to Barnes & Noble and buy books about WordPress. Yep. And you know that For Dummies series, like those series, that was our ChatGPT version all the way back then, is we had to pick up For Dummies book, whether you were learning SQL or WordPress or PHP or anything along those lines. So we have come a long way, and I'm grateful that you're helping people start their businesses that way, because it's a way more powerful way to do it. You talked about, I'm going to put you on the spot here because we are seeing the strengths and weaknesses here. You talked about being on Team Claude. So Luca, a lot of people are trying to decide. I think that it's powerful when you commit to something. It's cool because obviously the memory that's involved, these large language models get to know us, so they can give even more insightful answers catered to us in our businesses and what it is that we're working on. Why Claude over the other ones, and what do you observe as the strengths and weaknesses of the different tools? Because I'm sure you've used them all.
Yes, I have. Claude, I like because I like the company Anthropic behind it. I think they actually go out of their way to encourage safe and ethical use. They lobby the government for more regulation, not less. So as someone that preaches ethical AI use, I respect Anthropic, who builds the model Claude, for at least trying to do right by their users. as a tool itself, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, they're all kind of leapfrogging each other on a weekly basis. So if you're just a casual user, you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all equally good for a casual user. But if safety and privacy is something that you think about often, then personally, I think Claude is the best way to go. That being said, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, just like human beings. So I tend to go to Claude more when I need more conservative, not politically, but conservative as in polished, professional type of speech, or when it comes to coding. Whereas with ChatGPT is kind of casual. It's your best bud. It will more likely make jokes with you. And then Gemini is really good at image generation. Now, I say this and the start of 2026, if you listen to this a month later, who knows where those models will be. But again, if you're a casual user, you can't go wrong with any of them. And if you're a power user, then you will be using all of them. I say Claude is the best coder, and I always start with Claude, but just the other day we're working on our holiday messaging, which of course will be tons of AI. And when Claude couldn't succeed, I went to ChatGPT, and when ChatGPT failed, I went to Gemini. And by the end of it, all three had been contributors to the final product. The same way that humans work. It's rarely a single person effort. It's usually a team effort, and AI, it functions pretty much the same way.
Yeah, it's really cool hearing the way that you have bounced all these off of each other, Luca. I once had a guest on who talked about the fact that he built a consensus model. So essentially, and he's a programmer by nature, so he just totally geeked out on this on his own. But essentially, when he would have a conversation with ChatGPT would turn to Gemini and to Claude, and the three of them would come to a consensus together and bounce ideas and debate before returning the final solution there. And I think it's really cool to hear the pros and the cons of each of them and how they can work together. I think that real life workflow that you showed, that's a powerful example of how they can all work together, not necessarily just against each other. But Luca, it's such a blast having you on at the beginning of 2026 because we have 12 months of speculation, 12 months of innovations, 12 months of all of that. I am going to put you on the spot here. I don't normally do this to guests, but I know I'm in good company today. And I'm going to ask you to look forward at this calendar year because it is such an exciting year. And where do you see AI going? What's going to be new? Because we've seen so many of these models kind of get stuck in, the small iterations, doing things a little bit better. But I'll throw my 2 cents in here that I'm excited to see who pushes the hardware envelope this year. I'm so curious if I'm going to have I don't know. I don't want to say Alexa because I'm going to trigger everybody else's. And also I think Alexa is such an academic product or elementary product. I think that was never fully tapped into. But is someone going to win the AI hardware race? And then especially the real-time AI race. Why am I not, as a podcast host, on part of my screen? Why don't I have a real-time AI that's listening to what we're both saying and saying, hey, this would be a fun topic to ask Luca about. Hey, from his LinkedIn, you could ask him about this. So hardware and real-time AI is where my head is going. Luca, what are you paying attention to in 2026?
I think shopping is going to change drastically because right now, most of us still turn to, google.com when we're looking for a product, or heck, we'll just go to Amazon. I think AI in 2026 is drastically going to change how shopping happens now that all of them now have more real-time access to the internet than they did this time last year, and are better able to serve you accurate information on products and pricing. And I think shopping is going to become a lot more personalized. And I'm interested to see whether that helps the large companies dominate or if it's going to uncover some of the smaller guys because now ideas can be more personalized. I think that's going to be a big shift. As far as the technological shift, I think we're going to see fewer major shifts, but I think we're going to see more regular uses because companies are starting to realize that whether they want to or not, AI is here. So they're all implementing it. Whether they're implementing it correctly is a different story, but I think more people are going to have access to AI, and I think more people are going to be experimenting with it, and I think we'll see a little bit less fear from it by the end of this year.
Yes. Ooh, I like all of those predictions. And you're right. I feel like shopping is one of those things. And I'm going to throw travel in there as well, because I feel like travel has gotten so expensive, Luke. I feel like even to fly to DC frequently to visit my brother. And it's become this constant game now of, okay, if I add baggage fees on this airline, or if I upgrade to base economy in this one, it's such a game. Please, AI, fix that world. I'm really excited for that future.
As soon as we get to the point where I trust it to make decisions, absolutely. We haven't talked about agentic technology, and I think that's one thing that I'm waiting to become better, because agents are intended to be AI making decisions and performing actions for you. But as someone who's in this industry, I still don't trust them enough to do it. So I still use them for information. But it will be exciting if, you can say, hey, I'm like you flying to DC to visit your brother, buy this ticket as soon as you see it below a certain, dollar amount. But I don't trust it with my credit card just yet.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you there. Well, Luca, so many interesting considerations. This has been such a treat hearing from you in all these different ways, but I've got to ask you the question that I always ask at the end of every episode, and it's super broad, and it's with your entrepreneurial hat on, although I'm sure AI is always inside of that entrepreneurial hat of yours. So that question is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
It's never the right time. So if you think that you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. You can always come up with reasons for why not to do something. So why don't you just flip the page and say, you know what, here are the reasons why I want to start. My whole life, I said, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, until one day I was having drinks with friends, and one of them said, you know what, there's nothing preventing us from starting our own company right now. And I couldn't sleep that night. And that's how Fox and Spindle got started. I talked to my friend Jenny, and here we are a few months later. You can always come up with reasons why not. But especially now with AI, you can have your own devil's advocate, have it convince you why you should instead.
Yes. Ooh, I love that, Luca. You're right. Because that natural inner voice, it's always going to give us those reasons. That's a fun real life use case of AI, is be that good person on my shoulders, not that inner voice of a critic. So Luca, from start to finish, you've delivered in so many different ways. And I'm really excited for this to be the beginning of listeners' journeys with you and with Fox and Spindle. You're doing so many cool things. I love your branding. I love how much your energy shows up in your website. I love everything that you guys are putting into the world. So for listeners who want to see it, hearing us talk about it, that's one thing, but seeing it in action, signing up for your newsletter, that's a whole different experience. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yep. So foxandspindle.com is the base website, and all of our webinars where you can interact with us directly are at foxandspindle.com/howtofox.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And also, I think that a fox is one of those universally cool animals. Doesn't matter who you are. Foxes are always cool. So, Luca, huge kudos to you and your business partner for starting all the cool things that you've done. And listeners, you already know that you can find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So, Luca, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a genuine pleasure.